Okay, so now we want to cover the dreaded prong collar, or at least that's what we refer to it as. However, the proper name is called a pinch collar because that's what it was designed to do, okay? A prong collar and a pinch collar are actually two different types of collars, and I have a prong collar here to show you the difference between the two. The typical one that we see is this one right here, okay? And the original design is so when you put them together, you have to be able to squeeze these two prongs together and slide into these two openings. So you push in there, you get it in, and then that's what it looks like. Okay, so when it's on the dog, you have that pinch collar. That's what it's called. And the reason for that is because then when you pull it together, these two prongs, you see how they move? They actually come together when you squeeze it, and they are to pinch the first layer of the skin. Just pinch and release. That's the idea of this particular collar, okay? We call it prong because we see all these prongs, and again, it looks barbaric. I know when I first started, I wanted nothing to do with this collar. I didn't understand how it was used, how it was designed, or the technique to get it to do what it's supposed to do, okay? So you have these types of, prong collars, all chain. The design, like I say, is you have to squeeze these together. You squeeze those two prongs together to get it out. You have to have strong hands. I don't, so that's another reason I don't really care for this collar. But they have other ones that come a little bit easier. Here's another version, okay? This one has the little rubber stoppers on it to protect the dog. What you'll see here with these prongs, they're actually rounded off. Now, not all companies have these rounded edges. Some of the cheaper ones that are made are actually flat, cut flat, and they have very sharp edges, and that's how they cut the dog. So you'll hear about people saying how, it left holes in the dog or it cut the dog. That's because it was a cheap one, and it was just cut straight off. Coastal Pet Products, Titan Pet Products, they make these so that it's rounded, but they also make these little black stoppers for added protection, okay? But again, and then this one comes with this little plastic handle so that you can just slide it together so you don't have to mess with the prongs. However, you still have to size these correctly to the dog, okay? If you can take your dog, and this, I see this all the time, and you can slide this over the head, then it's too big for your dog. It's not gonna work. And the dog can slide his head out, okay? So that's a problem. You have to actually size it to fit the dog. Meaning you have to take some of these prongs off in order to fit the dog's neck, okay? But this is the type of collar that has an easy fit or an easy top. That way, all you do is squeeze the sides of these prongs. It opens. You can put it on the dog's neck. So if it's sized correctly, you can slide it on. Voila, okay? But if you can slide that thing over his head, it's useless. Okay. Now, they also make that in plastic. There's a plastic one. See? This one, I forget the name of, Star Mark, I think is the name of this. And again, the idea is that if it's fitted correctly, so instead of dealing with the individual prongs, you can come around, and this thing has this hook, and you can hook it, okay? But you still have to size it to the dog, okay? So this one may be too big because you see all of this room here? It's already squeezed. It's already to the tight. There's no room, okay, to correct the dog. So it's too big. If the collar is sitting way down here, it's useless. So when they get that correction, they're not feeling it down here. It has to be up here. That's what they're designed for, to get that first little layer of skin, to pinch it, just a quick pinch and release. Again, it comes from the snap and release. Real quick, okay? It's not pull and hold. Just quick snap and release. So it pinches and releases. That gets the dog's attention. That's the idea. You just pinch, pinch, pinch until the dog looks away from whatever it is they're looking at. Now with this one, the prongs, in my opinion, are tougher to get off because you have to squeeze down and out. Then you have to remove. Let's see. Okay, so you're going to size this to the dog, right? So we have to put this on and figure out how far that we can go. So I'm looking at this one all the way. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, well, this is too big for the dog. We're just going to do this for an example. So then you slide it on like that, and then you pop these in. Okay, this way, the collar should stay on, and it should stay up. Okay, that's the idea. The dog cannot get this over his head and off. Now, when you give him the quick correction, okay, so I should have left one more in there. This is too tight. But when you give the correction, it'll give a quick pinch. Okay, so it's a quick snap and release. That is the idea behind this collar. Remember, this is technically a pinch collar. This does the same thing. You see how they come together to pinch, okay? They don't poke the skin. They come together to pinch. That's the idea. So you pinch and release. When you do a quick snap and release, it's all in the wrist. Snap and release, pinch and release. That's what it should be doing. Now I'm going to show you the prong collar. Okay. This is common, at least what I've seen, is with hunters. They like the prong collar. These have little prongs that literally just kind of dig into the neck. As the dog pulls, they dig into the neck, okay? They're kind of coming together, but again, it's on leather, you know, so it looks okay. You don't see the prongs, so that way you don't have as many people complaining. But this is the idea. This is how it's supposed to sit on the dog, okay? Let's see if we can get this. Probably not small enough. So this collar, you're hooking it literally to this hook, okay? So again, if it's too loose, like, you know, it's gonna come right off the dog. But the idea is that the prongs dig in if the dog is pulling, okay? So that's why they use these collars. Again, I don't use it, I don't like it, I've never liked this style. But that's the difference between an actual prong collar versus the pinch collar. They're designed to do different things, and they're used with different techniques. This is simply just to use like a regular leash, regular collar, and if the dog pulls, the prongs dig into him. Whereas that training collar is used when you're actively training the dog and you are working with them, and then it's a quick snap and release correction to pinch that first layer of skin. That's the idea with the actual pinch collar, okay? The next collar, which is the one that I recommend and that I use, is the martingale collar. This is starting to become a little bit more popular versus some of these. And it's easier for teaching people because there's not like it's the same technique of the snap and release, but it doesn't matter like the chain collar. You have to be on one side of the dog. With the martingale collar, you don't. It doesn't matter if you're on the left side, the right side, it still releases. So let me show you with that. Okay, so I have two of them here. I have the leather martingale collar, okay, has the chain. Again, it's designed just like the chain collar with that type of technique in mind, because it's that noise that gets the dog's attention, okay? It's not to pull and hold and drag the dog around. It's just a quick snap and release to get the dog's attention. Now these have to be fitted, okay? Just like a regular collar. So you slide this to the size of the dog. And the idea again is that you keep it high on that neck. Okay, right up in here is where this collar needs to be. So I'll show you as we put it on, and then we have to make this smaller. Now, like a lot of these collars, once you start using them, these adjustable collars, once you start using them, they will start to loosen up on their own. They adjust back to a larger size. What I found to stop that was using electrical tape. Once I get the right position, so this is good right here. So you can see it's under here. You can see where it fits here. The dog cannot pull this. You know, if he's pulling, he can't slip this over his head. That's the idea. He cannot slip out of it. If he pulls backwards to get away, it's not going to come sliding over his head, okay? Compared to a flat collar or a collar that's not adjusted correctly. So it's very important you get them adjusted correctly and that you have something he can't slide out of. Now the idea, like I said with the design, is the noise. It's so simple. It's not pull, hold, jerk them around. It's just that noise. You annoy the dog basically because that sound is annoying. It's right near his ears. He hears it. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. You're going to get the dog's attention. Now, dogs who have longer ears, hound dogs like the one in the picture, you know, basset hounds, it's not as annoying to them, that noise, okay, because they have that comfort, that, you know, cover, versus dogs with their ears up. So when you got like the German Shepherds and stuff where they have that shorter ears, the ears are up, they react very quickly to that noise just because it's so close, okay? But again, it's snap and release. That is it. You get that dog's attention. You've got to try to keep it high on the neck, just like that, and you're going to have to keep adjusting it. So as you're walking, it's going to come down. You just got to move it back up and be ready. Put a little bit of tension. What I do, especially in the beginning, when I'm first walking, because I know I'm going to have to get the dog's attention a lot. Hang on, here we go. Is I tend to keep a little bit of tension on the collar. And then when I need to correct, I can just, you know, to get his attention, okay? And then I can readjust it, you know, just to get his attention. Now, obviously, if that's not good enough, the dog's more stubborn, whatever, then you can up to another training collar. The martingale, you can actually leave on the dog, like during the day. You know, I've had clients that have hooked their tags to it and stuff. But this is something that you can leave on the dog. Versus the chain collar and the prong collar, you do not leave those on that dog. You only use them for when you are actively working with the dog. That is it. Okay. Now we have a regular flat collar, which is the most common that people use, but it's also the one that the dogs slip out of and get loose. Okay. So right here is just your typical flat collar. They're just flat. That's why we call them flat. Okay. You get these little things that they slip in. You connect the leash there. You also put the tags on that. You adjust it right here. Okay. Same thing. You know, you get it to where it's small enough, and it fits correctly on the dog, so it's not too loose. Now, even these you can adjust tight enough that hopefully it won't slip off. See if we can get this on here, because it has never been adjusted. And take this off. Okay. A little bit more. There we go. All right. So he could still probably slip out of this. At least it sits a little bit higher, but you see how it comes down. But the dog can still, if you're pulling here and he backs out, like he's going to pull that thing off. Okay, he can get out of that. And that's how you end up losing the dog. You know, you don't know what's going to trigger the dog to try to run and get away. You know, if something scares them, whatever. They just don't like you being in control. You know, they try to bolt. So, you know, the key is to try to prepare against that. And that's why I prefer the martingale, because they can't pull out of it, but at the same time I can still work with the dog, getting little corrections and trying to get them to walk with me, you know, and not against me. You can have two collars on as well. So say you have your flat collar, plus you have a training collar, whichever one, you know, you want to work with. You can do that as well. So you've got maybe the leash attached to the flat collar, and then you could have a handle leash attached to your, say, the pinch collar or the martingale, so that when you need to correct, you can just grab the handle, give a couple of corrections, let it go. Okay, so that way the dog gets his corrections, but you're not, you know, holding that leash or holding on to that collar. Okay. The other thing I want to point out are the differences with these clips. Okay, this one has a metal clip, but this here is plastic. Now, I like the metal. Some of them have metal here as well. I would prefer that, okay? Because let's say you're holding this, you're looking the different direction, the dog's looking over here, a rabbit runs by, the dog bolts. That plastic can snap. It has happened several times. This is plastic. So these little clips will just snap right off. Plus, after years of use, they get frail and they will break. This is a nylon, still a martingale, but it has the easy clip as well. Okay, so it has that little plastic. You can see the little plastic clip on this side. Same thing, that clip can break. If that dog pulls hot enough, that thing's gonna snap. So if I have one of these, I prefer to look for a metal versus the plastic ones. They just last longer. They can tolerate more abuse. Okay, that is all the collars, you know, that we use, training or otherwise. And then the other thing that I use is slip lead. Okay, SLIP, slip leash. This is what I prefer to use with most of my dogs. It just comes across like that. Now, with a slip leash, you do have to, it's kind of like the chain collar. You have to be on one side of the dog so that it releases, okay? So you can see here with the hook, you see how it comes down, okay? We'll turn it backwards here. But you see how it releases? So that when I loosen the leash, it comes loose. That's the idea with this collar, or with this leash. If you put it on backwards, it won't release, okay? So like you have it here, now it just stays there. Okay, so it doesn't release like it should. So that's the only bad thing about the slip leash, is if you don't have it on correctly, it can, you know, be an issue. Still, for the most part, they loosen up enough. You know, and again, you're only throwing this on because you're trying to, you know, maybe take them for a walk, whatever. But at least you're close enough. It's easy to get it on and off. Loading them in and out of the vehicle, I use this. I actually when I first start training a dog, I use the slip leash because I'm guiding the dog before I start correcting them for not knowing what I want. So first I want to teach the dog what I want. I want them to show me they understand by doing it before I start, you know, working with actually correcting a dog. But the slip leash is great because it's just simple. You slap it on, it fits, they can't slip out of it. You know, and then you can take the dog for a walk. It's easy to keep it up in the right position. Again, you're still going to have to adjust it, you know, holding it up here, because it will slip down, okay? And then you'll have to bring it back up again, you know, keeping your hand here as you're walking, okay? But that's the slip leash. They come in, same thing. You got leather, you've got nylon. Now, for me personally, because I use a leash so much, I find that the leather is just smoother. It's softer on my hands. The nylon here, the nylon starts to, you know, kind of get rough on your hands. You end up with calluses and sores. The other thing, even with the collars, these nylon collars, you know, after being on the dog's neck for so long, they start rubbing, okay? And you'll see it'll create like bald spots, marks on their neck, especially with the nylon. Leather, not as much. I've had mine. I've got a Roddy that's had hers on for years now. Mind you, it's loose, so it hangs down, but she sleeps with it on and everything. She always has her collar on, and she has no like indentation, like where it's taking the fur off. But with a nylon one, because of the constant moving, it will. It just sort of grinds it down, and then you have that. You can see the skin. Okay, so that's the downside to the nylon versus the leather. So hopefully this will help you guys. It's just a kind of a general overview. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments, and then I'll try to answer each one of them. Okay? You have a great day.